Welcome to Beatsource Tech. My name is Mojaxx, and today we are talking about the product which was undoubtedly the star of the show at NAMM 2023. It's the DJControl Inpulse T7 from Hercules. Hercules have always been a company which is content to forge their own path. They were right there at the beginning when all-in-one controllers first became a viable option for DJs, but as they are usually focused on entry-level and affordable products, you don't hear their name dropped all that often in more professional DJ circles. That all changed in April this year when they revealed the DJControl Inpulse T7 at the NAMM show in California. It had everyone talking because this was a device which promised to bring spinning platter fun to a whole new price point, $699 in the US. And that's the main thing to keep in your head throughout this review. This thing costs $700. The closest controller to it in terms of price is the DDJ Flex 6 GT from Pioneer DJ. So although it's tempting to compare it to, say, the One, the spinning platter controller from Rain, that's not really a fair comparison as that one sells for $1,600. They just aren't in the same category. The spinning platters on the T7 are simply fantastic. Yes, they're belt drive, not direct drive, but the platter is small at 7 inches and lightweight, so you really don't need a ton of torque to give them enough juice for comfortable scratching. At this point, portable turntables have proved that belt drive can absolutely do the job for cutting if built correctly. The way the records connect to the platters is slightly different from what we've seen before, although similar in principle. The record is held on by a kind of spring clip, which then keeps it locked to the spindle, and that spins independently of the platter itself. What that means though is that you don't need any kind of special vinyl to use with it. Literally any small hole 7-inch record can be used with no drilling or other modification needed, so you can customize the T7 to look and feel however you want, just by picking different color records. You can also use any 7-inch slip mat that you like, should the two options supplied by Hercules, one thin and one thicker, prove to be not to your taste. There will always be those who will ask this, so let's be clear, no, you aren't fitting 12-inch vinyl on there. At a push, you could use 10-inch records, but you'd need to remove the knob from the pitch fader, and those would then be unusable as they're underneath the vinyl. One option you do have, if you're after a larger top surface, would be to get the 8-inch control discs for the Denon 6000Ms from 12-inch skins, as they fit just fine. But I'm good with the 7-inch size, I love 45s after all. The next topic I have to discuss is the faders. They were the biggest concern of DJs who got hands-on with the T7 at NAMM, and I do understand why. If you put spinning platters on a device, then those who love to cut and scratch will be drawn to it, so the faders, or at least the crossfader, need to be up to that task. And put bluntly, the faders on the T7 aren't great. They are also not terrible, and for an average mixing and blending DJ they'll be fine, but if you have turntablism leanings, they won't make you very happy. Plus, crucially, all three faders are soldered to one board inside the T7, so it's not feasible to easily swap out the crossfader alone for something more advanced. There is some very good news on that front, however. I spoke to Elliot from Innofader, and he's working with Hercules to create a drop-in solution to replace all three faders in one hit. I don't know when that's coming or how much it will cost. My guess would be at least $200, but as an Innofader fan, I'm confident that that will turn the T7 into a true battle weapon. So let me show you the fader situation and kind of the cutting situation in general on here. There is a bit of a cutting distance on this. It's maybe between 2 and 3 or 3 and 4 millimeters. So it's not the tightest cut in the world. It's also not the worst I've encountered by a long, long way. I've come across much worse in the past, but if you're into kind of really complex multi-finger cuts like crabs and so on, then you might find that's a bit restrictive. And also, if you don't have the skills to overcome that longer cutting distance, I'm talking about someone like myself there, it might not be ideal for you. Plus, you've got the limitations of it is a very standard kind of fader. How long is it going to last? So I do think if you're really into cutting, you're going to want to look for that Innofader upgrade option down the line. And that is something that's kind of disappointing in a way because the platters are so good for scratching. Like, they're amazing. Let me take the loop off. I mean, it shouldn't really be a surprise now. We have like a world portable DMC battle every year because people are getting down so hard on the belt drive portable turntables, and this is really no different in terms of the tech, and it works. And the cut-in shape on this stock fader is actually very good as well. So overall, you know, the experience of cutting on it is great. I just think longer term, you're probably going to want to look towards the upgrade. The other thing I will kind of show you live here is the amount of drift there is. I found very minimal drift in terms of cue point drift. So let me set it to dead on 12 o'clock. Right, we are dead on 12. There it is. Still dead on 12 o'clock. Now what I found in testing other hardware in the past is where drift tends to come in is when you let go and bring it back. So let's let it go, give it a little wiggle around there, bring it back. We're still basically on 12 o'clock there. Just the tiniest difference between where we started it off and where we are now. If anything at all. And one thing I will point out is if you have anti-drift mode enabled in Serato DJ Pro, or indeed in Serato DJ Lite, you'll want to turn that off because that refers to pitch drift, not cue drift. And I find with spinning platter devices, that can actually make cue drift worse. So I would definitely make sure that's turned off when you're using the T7. I was getting worse results with anti-drift mode enabled than I am now. And so I think even for pretty complex juggles, the amount of cue drift on here is very, very acceptable. And certainly for regular DJing, you know, dropping stuff in on the one and doing scratches and so on, I do think that is pretty accomplished and pretty solid. You can see I'm basically still dead on 12 o'clock right now, and I've really been messing with that now for a couple of minutes. So yeah, overall, I just think the scratching and kind of cutting performance here on the T7 is very good, but I think if that's important to you, long term, you will want to look at a fader upgrade. It's simple as that, really. Bringing things back to basics, the T7 is built to the kind of standards you would expect at this price. There's a lot of plastic. But that does kind of work in its favour. Combined with the belt, not direct drive platters, what you have is a remarkably light and portable unit. It's also pretty compact and easy to carry around. All of the contact points, like the 2-direction effects paddles, the knobs and faders, all feel sturdy enough for the price. One feature I really love, which has come over from the Impulse 500, is the pop-out riser feet in the bass, which bring the T7 up to a similar height to a typical mixer, turntable or media player. Those few extra millimeters of height can make all the difference to how your back feels after a long set. Connectivity is fairly limited, with the master output shared between both RCA and XLR outputs. I do really appreciate having that balanced output option, as it will make the T7 play nice with big sound systems. There's a mic input, which only has a 1/4-inch jack socket and no EQ, but it does sound very good with a lot of headroom for lower output mics. I used it for both my demos in this video and on streams and was very satisfied with its performance. Queuing is fairly comprehensive with switches for both channels and the master plus a Q master blend knob. Sadly, there was no split Q option available in any of the software I tested it with at the time of making this video, so I'm hoping that might come along later on. I mentioned streaming, and that does bring up something you might need to be aware of. The mic is routed independently to the main sound via the audio interface, so when you use Serato's option to send audio to other applications like OBS, the mic doesn't come through with it. So the T7 will require the use of a separate interface if you want to use it for live streaming with one computer. And that brings me on to the sound quality of the interface in general, which I was happy with. It doesn't have the highest specs on paper, 44kHz and 24-bit, but in use the sound was clean and accurate and I had no complaints. Unsurprisingly, with spinning platters, the T7 does require a separate power supply and it can't be run off USB bus power. From a practicality perspective, I would always prefer a built-in power supply with an IEC connector, but I get why, with the space available, Hercules have used an external DC power brick instead. When it comes to software, the T7 offers 3 options out of the gate, and I'm sure there will be a virtual DJ mapping within minutes of launch. At no cost, you can use Serato DJ Lite or the DJuiced software from Hercules themselves, and if you've bought a license for Serato DJ Pro, that works too. In the demo I'm about to show you, I'm using Serato DJ Pro, but I did test with Lite, and that works just as well, only with a few less features, as you'd expect. So let me take you through the many features here on the T7. This thing is remarkably deep. I was genuinely surprised at just how much control it gives you over your software. The software right now that I'm using is Serato DJ Pro. That's important to be aware of because this is very much a controller. It is not so much, a hardware device. The filter, for example, that is Serato's software filter. The EQs is Serato's software EQs, which means they sound perfectly good. There's nothing remarkable about them, but they are perfectly good and do the job very nicely. Likewise, there is no hardware effects. These are just controlling Serato's software effects. We'll come back to that in a bit though. Let's get to the basics. We've got the transport controls over here on the left hand side. Clicky buttons. They're clicky, but they are very responsive. The one thing I will point out, at the time of making this video with the beta version of Serato DJ Pro that I'm using, there is no instant start option that I can find in the settings in the software. Now, if you've used spinning platter devices from say Numark or Rain or Denon DJ with Serato DJ Pro before, you'll be aware of that setting. It basically overrides the natural pickup. There's a gradual pickup with a spinning platter like this, and it will override that and just do an instant start right from the jump. Now often, when I'm playing on spinning platters, I'm going to drop stuff in, but not always. Sometimes I want to drop stuff on the one, but with this you do get that gradual pickup. So I would hope that Serato can add that option into the software at some point later for this hardware. Above that we have the shift button, used for various functions. We have the sync button, so you can sync between your 2 decks, and that illuminates a little bit. All the illumination on these lights, on these LEDs, it's not incredibly bright. In a bright environment like this, you are kind of struggling to see what's going on a little bit. In a dark room, it's not so bad, but they're not particularly bright, but it's not an issue, just something worth noting, I think. So we have then the performance pads, and these are great, I have to say, really, really good. They're proper pads, very responsive. Nice feel to them, nice amount of travel, and they're full RGB, as you can see. They light up and you've got all the different colors. So yeah, very impressed by these pads, I must say. Lots of modes on there. We have hot cue, of course, is the first mode. Then you hold shift and that puts us into mode 5, which is pitch play. Then we have loop mode. This is auto loop on the top, and I've got beat jump enabled in Serato DJ Pro, so it's beat jump at the bottom for me. And you have the parameter buttons over here. Hold shift to change the parameters in any pad modes that have parameters. Shift, and that one puts us into mode 6, which is loop roll. And then you have stems, which is mode 3, full stem control. Take out the drums, bass, melody, vocal. And then below that you have the stems effects, which is how I generally work with stems in Serato. So the full stem pad mode there, brilliant, love that. Then we have saved loops on mode 7. Then we have sampler on mode 4 and scratch bank on mode 8. Now, this is quite interesting. Again, at the moment, this is a beta version of Serato DJ Pro I am using. I can't seem to route the sampler audio anywhere within this current build of Serato, but I'm sure that will change once the full version comes out. This is, as I say, an early build of the software. But yeah, fantastic pads all around. Really, really impressed. But it doesn't end there, because you have your looping pad modes, but you also have a loop encoder. So you just change the length by twisting the encoder. and then push it to release or activate the loop. Fantastic. We then have manual in and out as well, which is released by, again, pushing the auto loop encoder. This 4-beat marking here doesn't do anything in Serato DJ Pro. Maybe that is just for other software, but yeah, it doesn't do anything here. But then we get to the next incredibly cool feature, which is you've got instant stems controls here as well. So we have instrumental and vocal. So you can hit that, instant instrumental, instant vocal. And the first time I performed with this on a stream, I was just like all over it. Absolutely all over it. It's just so handy. Instant a cappella. I'm playing my track. And I'm dropping in the next one, coming to the end of this one. Let's instant vocal. No need to change pad mode, no need to remap anything, because on a lot of Serato DJ Pro devices I map stems controls to the hot cues, but no need on here. Instant vocal. Love that. And then this is the next thing. So we're going to talk about the pitch fader, right? We'll go up to the pitch fader up here. It's a very long pitch fader, nice full length pitch fader. Pretty accurate. You can get down to like 0.1 of a BPM, so a tenth of a BPM at a time. And also you can go through in a 1/10 of a percent change as well. So I think that's going to be accurate enough for most people. It has just a dead area, you know, kind of a physical click at 0 with a fairly small dead area. It's not too big. I know some people don't like those, but I'm very happy with that. I like the idea that you can just feel that click and get it right back to 0 without any fuss, and it illuminates there as well. On all the Hercules products, you have these beta line kind of lights here. You have, again, lights to show you which direction, whether you're ahead or behind the other track that's playing, beat match guide. These are all really good features for beginners. Not the kind of thing that I'll be looking at too much, but I really like the fact that they are there. Absolutely. But yeah, I'm impressed with the pitch slider. It's good stuff. But yeah, I was a bit concerned because spinning platters, they are fantastic for many things, but one thing they are not good for is pitch bending up, because you can pitch bend down to get a track in time. That's no problem. Be gentle with it. It's a belt drive, but you know, you can absolutely pitch bend down, but pitch bending up, it's not really a thing on spinning platter controllers. It is on turntables because the spindle is fixed to the platter, but on this, I mean, you can do various ways, but you know, generally spinning platters with software, I need pitch bend buttons, and I couldn't see pitch bend buttons, but unless you're holding shift, these parameter buttons are in fact pitch bend buttons. So you can just give it that gentle nudge back and forth just to get it in time with the other deck. So I was delighted when I realized that. That is fantastic as far as I'm concerned. Then we have the range button that changes the range of your pitch slider. So +8, 16 and 50 in Serato. And then that hold shift and that's key lock. Then we have our library controls, again, which I love on this thing. Really impressed by these. You can scroll the library. You can push down to load a track, and it's the same on both sides, so you don't have to reach across to another deck or go in the middle. You know, each deck you can scroll and load without any fuss whatsoever. And then you have the prep, so you can put it into the prep crate, and you can go back and scroll through your actual crates in the side window as well. So yeah, overall, just really happy with the way the overall deck section is integrated with Serato DJ Pro. I think it is fantastic. Then we have the effects controls. This did confuse me at first because, again, there is no way to route the effects in Serato DJ Pro to each. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 effects, 1, 2 and 3. They're not divided. Like whatever you select here will go to both. So if I choose number 1, which is echo, that is echo over here. And then if I play this deck, again, we have echo, all right? Because it's only this one on the left-hand effect unit that is enabled. Now, I will point out at this point, post fader and post crossfader for both. Then you have the beat length controls. And then what we do have is the ability to use, so let's say I want to do my favorite echo in Serato DJ Pro, which I'm now enabling. That is on number 1. I like the single mode effects in Serato DJ Pro because it means I can add a bit of high pass on the echo. I just think it sounds a bit cleaner. But yeah, so you can have a single effect over on this side, and then you could have 3 other effects on the other side. So let's fire up, I could have my single effect echo, and then I can also have my flanger from over here. And it's doing both, as you can hear. So you can layer up to 6 effects here if you wanted to. I mean, that would sound absolutely bonkers, but you could layer 6 effects all at once. And again, I bring this deck up so you can hear both my effect from the left-hand side, my echo, and my flanger from the right-hand side are applied to this deck too. So you can't route them separately. Don't think of these as 2 different sections. Everything is routed into the one big effects unit, which is different from how some companies do it with Serato DJ Pro. Some hardware does it, but in this case, yeah, I'm very happy with that indeed. And overall, yeah, just with that integration for me, it's superb. It works really, really well. Everything's laid out in a logical fashion, and having things like the extra stem buttons and the loop encoder as well as the loop pad modes, whichever way you work with Serato DJ Pro, I think you're going to be pretty happy on the T7. So I'm going to briefly talk you through using the T7 with DJuiced, which is the software from Hercules themselves. Now, to be fair, it is a nicely accomplished piece of software. It does a good job, you know, when it comes to mixing, blending and everything else. It's got loads of effects in there. It has a lot of great features for beginners. So it is an accomplished piece of software, absolutely. But of course, the elephant in the room here is that with the T7, you have access to Serato DJ Lite for free, and you can use it with Serato DJ Pro if you have a license for that on top. And so I have to compare the two side by side, and for me there are a couple of reasons why I would definitely be sticking with the Serato options on here. First of all, the pad modes are all great, right? We've got the hot cues, they're very responsive, they still work in the same way. We have an additional pad effects mode, which Serato only has with like one piece of hardware in the world. So I like pad effects, they're really good fun to work with. And you can even like change what the effect is from the pads and everything else. So I like that, very hands-on, very cool. But then we have stems, right? And they do have stems, and yes, they are stems, but they are not on a level with the stems from Serato. They're just not there. You know, for me right now, the gold standard at the time of making this video is Serato and the version 2 from Virtual DJ. These are more on par with Algorithms DJ, with the first gen from Virtual DJ, and with Record Box stems. That's kind of where they are. And so they're fun to play around with, but as soon as you get in front of an audience, I don't think the quality is going to be quite there for most tracks. Like the drums, for example, just don't kick in the same way. They're not as clean. There's more artifacting going on. So it's a fun feature here, but it doesn't work. It just doesn't sound as good as Serato stems. And I love the fact you've still got the vocal, the instrumental and everything else. That's really cool. The workflow's great, but the quality is not quite there. The second factor is the effects, and there's a couple of reasons why. Normally, when you're using these paddle style effects on nearly all the hardware I've ever tried, you have one set of effects that work both paddles. You know, this paddle is for this deck, this paddle is for this deck, but they're the same effects going on. With this one, these controls, 1, 2, 3, they will always be assigned to this left paddle, and 1, 2, and 3 over here always assigned to this right paddle. They are split. And in a way, that's kind of cool because you could have different effects on each side, but it just makes for a slower, less intuitive workflow as far as I'm concerned. Coming from other hardware and software, it doesn't feel quite as good. And you can change around the mapping, so you could actually have these 3 assigned to both decks, but then this paddle will do nothing. It's kind of hard to explain, but for me, I would have preferred it if they'd gone down the route that Serato did with this hardware and just have everything sent to both sides at once. The other thing, and this one would be a deal breaker for me absolutely, is that the effects, even when you set them to post fader in the settings, which is an option you have, pre or post fader, you get post fader on the up faders, so you get your echo tails, which is great, but you don't on the crossfader. It just cuts. And for me, as someone who uses echoes in my transitions a lot and uses the crossfader, that for me, that is a deal breaker. Like, I couldn't, you know, if I, given the choice, given the fact that I have the option to use Serato DJ Lite and Serato DJ Pro, both of which have post crossfader effects, you know, I would be using those over DJuiced. But if DJuiced is your software of choice, then it is integrated very well with the T7. And I wouldn't, you know, want to put you off using it. You should certainly try it because it's free to try with the hardware, of course. And you might find it is very much the software for you. But yeah, to be honest, for me, I'm sticking with Serato on here. So there you go, my thoughts on the DJControl Inpulse T7 from Hercules. My overall conclusion is, I love it. I think it's brilliant. For the money, I mean, it's just astonishing value what you're getting for the cost of this thing. And okay, look, it's not on a build quality level with something like the Rain 1, with its all metal construction and direct drive platters and everything else, right? It's not there. This is definitely a more kind of budget device. But in terms of the depth of features on there, it's got everything you could need. It's got all the pad modes, the integration is great with both DJuiced and with Serato, and it just performs incredibly well. It's one of those things that when I step up and play on it, it brings me joy, it makes me smile from ear to ear. It really, really does. It kind of exudes joy. And I think it will be a great device for a beginner if you've got the budget for it. It's slightly more expensive than the average entry-level controller. Where I think it will really shine is with an intermediate DJ. You know, where he or she has kind of outgrown their first controller, they want something that is more fully featured, they want to get into spinning platters. That's where the T7 really shines. But I do think it will have a place in a professional's toolkit as well. Because of that, you know, high performance, I don't think it will be the most durable thing ever. It doesn't have, as I say, that build quality of the very top end stuff. But look at the price difference between this and the very top end stuff. And I do think if you get that inner fader upgrade kit in there when that drops, I can see this being perfectly usable in professional environments. Absolutely, I can. So overall, I think this is completely a home run for Hercules, and I cannot recommend it enough. It is a superb product. In the comments this week, let's talk spinning platters. What is your favorite spinning platter device that you've ever owned or used that wasn't a regular turntable? And if you're more a static jog wheel kind of person, what was the device that made you step in that direction? What made you drop spinning platters and go for a static platter device? Sound off in the comments below. Thank you for watching this episode of Beatsource Tech. I do hope you've enjoyed it or found it useful. If you have, please give the video a thumbs up and make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any future videos. I'll see you next time.